Hey there, my friends. What the hell's going on? Hope everybody's doing well. I finally got around to making this damn video. Been trying to make this for a couple of days. I know you don't give a shit, but it was on the back burner. I had these notes in my head and on paper, and I was thinking about how do we cope with this kind of bullshit times that are going on right now. So before I made this video, I made one about outrage culture and the PC culture, if you will. Actually, the funny thing is I made it like a 20-minute video and I didn't even talk about I didn't even use the word PC once or politically correct, but that's what it was aimed at. And it's funny making a video like that at a time like this because there's so much going on in the world. There's so many bigger issues than, what you would call, first world problems, right? The fact that we're all living in kind of this utopian bullshit bubble here in America, and all of a sudden along comes a COVID and it fucks everything up, and now everybody's pissed off and angry at each other. It just, I wanted to compare it to like a flashover. Okay, you know what a flashover is? Sometimes when there's a small fire in a house, it'll slowly release gas and smoke, and it'll just fill the upper levels. And then all of a sudden, a flashover. Boom. The fire just goes, whoosh. It's the most dangerous thing. So the flashover is kind of the point where everything just goes to shit. And I feel like we already had a fire burning for a long time. It had been smoldering hardcore, and we had no good ventilation. We could have, but here we are, and now these divisions have come out worse than ever. So how do you get around this anxiety-inducing bullshit without becoming immersed in it? Everybody out there is watching what's going on. Everybody's watching the news, of course. But I wanted to talk first about being well-rounded. Now, regardless of what you think about, the term, let's just say well-rounded means you understand a lot of different subjects and ideas, and that you're willing to listen to other people's ideas. Well-rounded is often a term that's used with colleges or with schools, like to be a well-rounded student. That, sure, you could be, I would say being worldly is great, but going to school is not necessarily worldly or having that knowledge. It's not that you can learn everything and understand it. You have to watch it unfold and apply what you've learned over time. And that's wisdom, which is different than knowledge. So, anyhow, being well-rounded is somewhat like being a jack of all trades. And it doesn't mean that you can't master any subjects or anything, but the term that comes to mind is Renaissance man or Renaissance woman, whatever you want to use. It's just this ability to use the things around you to better your life as much as possible and to not be affected by other people's bullshit. And I guess another way to put it would be to being stoic or having stoicism, And if you don't know what stoicism is, then you just have to look into it. So what this requires is looking within honestly, looking at ourselves through an honest lens, and that is so damn difficult. I mean, people who try to really see themselves honestly realize that they can't really fully ever grasp who they are from the outside. You can only see yourself from your inside. So in order to really get a full perspective, you have to hear other people's opinions of you. And that can be painful. People don't like criticism, right? But it is important, and that develops emotional intelligence. And what that means is that we are not offended by things. We're not affected by everybody else's bullshit. That we can read and talk about a news headline or a subject without having being totally wrapped up in it. Like sometimes when I talk about a random subject on my channel, there'll be a person who, not very often, but will say something like, "Oh man, why do you let this affect you so much?" And I'm thinking in my head, I looked at it for like 20 minutes. I was like, what do you mean? But I guess people expect others to be really upset about things or angry about the things that go on in the world. I'll put it this way. I try to be a minimalist when it comes to how much I interact with the government, with society, with institutions and corporations. I just kind of live my life and do my thing, and I really want to make it simpler even over time. So I'm not really wrapped up in all that. But I wanted to say that, part of that is being selfish. Selfish is frowned upon sometimes, but it's also an important factor for success and being happy. So it kind of is a conundrum, an ambivalence towards whether you should help others or help yourself. And naturally, fortunately, my family and I have talked about it a lot, and we know that you got to take care of your own needs before you worry about others, because you have to be able to take care of yourself, or else everyone fails, right? And so it can be a good and bad thing, like everything else. Just like being well-rounded versus what I was going to say earlier was being a specialist in something. I can't remember who said it. He said specialization is for insects, when talking about humans being kind of, it was some philosopher or scientist from the 1800s, I think. But I believe, if I were to lay it out, I would say having an education, to kind of back up on that one, is important. It really is. Knowing how to write and read and have those basic English skills, or whatever language, then also being able to use basic mathematics, are extremely important in most lives. But what good is education if we're unhappy? And so what we really need is worldly knowledge, and that allows us to develop an emotional intelligence. And you don't necessarily have to go anywhere to get worldly knowledge. You just have to talk to people, and importantly, look in the past and say, what has worked for people? I think that's really overlooked. We're always yearning to move forward and make some better world for ourselves. But looking back, what has really worked? As much as tribalism has a bad name, bad rap, I think it was a wonderful way to live when the tribes were cooperating and minding their own business. We have grown too large. My neighbor and I talked the other day about Cascadia, which was the idea of the West Coast separating from the rest of the nation. And I think more people are taking those kinds of things seriously, not because we hate the country or anything like that, but smaller areas are easier to manage, because then the local governments are actually responsible to the people, who within a few hours can drive up to the capital and say how they feel. Whereas in this country, we all feel like we're left behind, right? So I believe, in a nutshell, I guess what I'm saying is I believe in a utilitarian type mindset, which is a philosophy all its own, but I don't believe in it in the sense that it's written out. Utilitarian basically means what's best for the most people, right? So it would be the old, I guess that would entail the old moral conundrum of the old train tracks problem, or the trolley problem, where the train's going down the track, it's heading towards one person, and they're tied to the tracks. There's a switch. You're at the switch. You're the only one who can reach it. You can, it's heading for 5 people. I always fuck that up. It's heading for 5 people on the tracks, or even 2 people. And you can change the track at the last minute to make it only kill 1 person. Would you pull that handle? So, would you just let it do what it's doing already, or would you be responsible for changing it and killing 1 person? Or if you didn't, would you be responsible for killing 2 people? And these moral conundrums, these philosophical, kind of dead ends, are some of the most important things I've learned, and they've really helped me to realize that other people's ideas of what's right and wrong and good and bad are very skewed by what they expect. So, utilitarian, to back up here, it only works if we are well-rounded. So you can only do what's best for the most people if you can use common sense and morality at the same time. You can't just be an automaton or a robot and say, no, this many people will die, we'll do this. But sometimes you have to, and that makes it tough. The school fails at teaching us moral values, and that's not their job. And I think that's the problem, is a lot of parents and a lot of people haven't been taught morality or values by their parents. And I've heard parents complaining that schools aren't teaching values. It's like, you're supposed to do that, man. They're teaching them mathematics, science. They're not there to teach them values or morals. But they are taught to be cookie-cutter children, and that's another story altogether. But anyway, the society is often operating on emotion over reason, and that makes it really difficult because I do it too. We all fall victim to kind of getting upset about something without thinking and then go, whoo, back up for a minute, think this through. And that's part of the emotional intelligence, to realize, let anger flow through you or frustration and then let it go. I mean, sometimes somebody will say something and I'll go off on them and they might think I'm all angry, but I'm not. I got out what I had to say and I move on with my day. I don't think about other people's problems, during my day-to-day bullshit. But that's another thing, is that, as a nation, we have to realize this. A lot of people want independence. They want to be, have freedom and independence, but that's only until they need help, until they need extra funds, or they need to call the cops, or they need the fire department, or, and that's why we have community. That's what community is. And so calling the cops on each other, it's the old MYOB, mind your own business, If nobody's hurting you, if you can't talk things out with each other, that's when you know that a nation or a society is starting to fall apart. Because, so to come back to the main point here, I'm explaining this is how do we deal with a society that's starting to fall apart and still get along with our neighbors and our friends and everybody. I mean, relationships get destroyed over different opinions. It's pretty ridiculous, Shouldn't harbor resentment to people over stupid things. But people take it to extremes, and I guess it's nothing new in some ways. We have a broken justice system, which sends people to prison that shouldn't, and doesn't send people to prison that should be. And then we have to ask ourselves exactly what freedom is. For the average person, it's always different. I've heard people that talk about freedom all day long, and then you ask about, what about pot smokers? Oh, they should go to prison. Interesting. Interesting concept. So the thing is, we all as Americans, as people, nobody likes being told what to do. And that doesn't mean that people don't like being directed, because a lot of people do. But nobody likes being pointed at, had their finger pointed and saying, you should or shouldn't do this, because these are independent choices that we have to make. We have to be smart about things that we do, but we always have been told what to do, and that's the unfortunate truth. And a lot of people follow along with it. The media is the culprit in this, to the extreme. And I'm saying Fox, CNN, all of them. It's amazing how many people talk about mainstream media who repeat Fox News talking points as if that's not mainstream. Fox is the most popular news in the whole nation. And the mentality of people out there, things are just falling apart. Reason is falling apart. They don't realize, some people just do not realize that everybody's out to get a dollar from you. But also that some people are really just trying to make a better world. And the real division isn't the lefts and the rights, or the haves and the have-nots, but the uber wealthy and those with the propaganda techniques to run entire, media outlets. The very people that are selling, that own your houses, and the people that, sell you products are the same ones that own the news that you're watching. And it's like, how do you get away from that? You just got to stop watching the news, learn about what's going on in the world, and that's the thing. You can still have knowledge about what's going on in the world without having to get immersed in opinions and other people's crap. Just for shits and giggles, I go to left and right-wing media at least once a month and just kind of read all the headlines to see how disgusting it's really gotten. And I'm disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted. But, so, to finish this up, remember this, opinions change with information, and if they don't, there's something wrong. I've changed a lot of my ideas in the last few years about what I think is important and not important, what's true and not true, and it continues to change as new information comes in, and as I find things worth my time. More off, just because something's true and there's some conspiracy or something else going on doesn't mean it really matters or that you can do anything about it. So I try to stick to things I can talk about. And one of those is being well-rounded as individuals, because the only way we can fight back against bullshit and tyranny is by being educated in many different facets. So we know what's going on with the climate, with vaccines, or with technology, or 5G, or any of these things, just being educated on the subjects, making a legitimate call based on science. But we've failed to care about science anymore. Everyone is suspect. They think everybody's lying to them, except the one person they want to believe is not lying to them. whoever that might be. Whether it's a YouTuber or a famous celebrity or the president or anyone else. There's always people out there who idolize a certain person as being the truther or the one who's telling them the truth. And I'd just like to say, be critical of everyone, because everybody's reality is skewed to their own mindset. So learn to identify bullshit and learn to change your opinion when you see it. The internet is a megaphone for lunatics. It's allowed a lot of people to spread misinformation, and we have to be savvy about those things. But either way, focusing on the negatives is bad for mental health. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not saying we shouldn't be aware of all the crap in the world and all the fraud and chaos and conspiracies. They are pretty messed up, and there is a lot of bullshit. But if it's all we focus on, and we can't do anything about certain things, then basically it's really bad for our own mental health. There's so much cognitive dissonance out there. We want to make a change, we want to help the world, but at the same time we feel helpless. And I totally fucking relate to that, Everybody right now is somewhat stressed, at least, about the unknown. However tough guy you might think you are, I know you're affected by this whole issue. Even if it's just interactions with other people who are stressed. Because often, to be honest, I'm not very stressed out by this situation. I find it to be a new opportunity to maybe get a cabin or land if we can do that sometime. I mean, I'm hoping it'll push me, and I'm trying to find the silver lining in it and to move forward. So the only thing that's honestly stressed me at all about it has been other people's reaction to it, and how you can see other people are super sensitive. They're very easily triggered, and it's easy to rub off on people. And I found myself having moments of frustration, but generally I'm hoping for the best here, and that's all I can do. But I know that honesty is failing in a lot of ways, and so the information we're getting is completely tainted by people's personal opinions and not expertise anymore. And that's a very dangerous road. So by being worldly, by having a grasp on some basic concepts, everything, energy, to the way that, materials operate, to atoms, we don't have to get pulled in and suckered into crazy belief systems, like thinking the earth is 6,000 years old and that man rode on dinosaurs, that kind of stuff. I mean, this kind of literalism because we don't understand the past. Naturally, I had to finish it with that one. It just came to mind. So I don't want to come up with any more examples because I might offend somebody. But I guess if you really believe the earth is only 6,000 years old and you're offended by me saying that, then you've got bigger problems probably. So I'll talk to you all later. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.